What did you think was your fetish until you tried it? I thought I was into rough choke play, but the chick I was with at the time thought light choking meant strangling. Now don't get me wrong, I like rough happy fun time, but I thought I might actually pass out or might have my throat crushed with the amount of pressure that was being applied to it that night. Candle wax. I always liked dipping my fingers in candles, so I thought, hey yay, that could work. Finally broke down and bought special happy fun time candles. Those fluffers went immediately in the no category after 10 seconds. Roleplay, I like cosplay and fantasy, and RP, figured it'd naturally carry over into sexy roleplay stuff. Nope. Turns out I get the giggles. Choking. As it turns out, being choked sends me into an immediate panic attack because I'm apparently extremely afraid of suffocating to death. My partner didn't get a chance to do it correctly because as soon as his hands touched my throat I freaked LMAO. Not me, but this girl I was dating about a year ago told me she always wanted to get shocked by one of those cattle prods thingies. I was completely against the idea as I did not want to basically tase her, but eventually we got on Amazon and bought one that was for in-bed use, and well, after the first shock she learned real quick that she was indeed not into that and blamed me for not stopping her LMAO. She was a really nice person and always thought it was super hot when she would see it in videos, but yay no, garbage hurts. This reminds me of that thread on r/sex where a girl was curious about scat happy fun time, so she had two strangers come over from Craigslist and garbage on her and in her mouth. She was absolutely horrified and disgusted and said she felt that way for weeks. Tough lesson about easing into more extreme fetishes. I did bondage one time and it wasn't done the right way. I laid on my stomach with my feet tied to my hands behind my back very tight with shopping bags so I couldn't move. I had something stuffed in my mouth, I think a sock, so I couldn't speak. The guy then teased me by taking a knife and bringing it very close to my eyes and throat. I was flat out terrified. We were close, so it was all in good fun, but never again. Roleplay, I think he was into it, but I was barely controlling my laughter at how awkward it was. At one point, it became so ridiculous that I snorted louder than I ever had in my life. Rough sex. Turns out I can't handle it rough at all, not physically or emotionally. My buddy used to always talk about eating ass. He would joke about eating a hot chick's butt after a sweaty bike ride. Sure enough, he lands a bit of a hefty girl, and a few weeks later he lets us know he tried it, consequently had to run to the bathroom and blow chunks mid-rim. Turns out it wasn't his thing, and we loved to remind him about it. I've somewhat looped back around, but I was really into anal until I fingered my then GF and touched a log. Telling her that maybe she should go to the bathroom and seeing her look of realization and horror haunts me to this day. That pretty much killed the mystique and allure all at once. I've never tried it per se, but when I was a young girl I was obsessed with pregnancy. If any cartoon, movie, or book had a pregnant woman or birth scene, I would watch it and rewatch it for hours and hours. I devoured anything that had pregnant women in it when most of the time they were not designed for child eyes, look who's talking, etc. I drew pregnant lady after pregnant lady, only stopping once when my very confused mother found a multiple panel comic of a stick figure woman in labor. When I reached prawn watching age many years later, I thought back to my weird obsession and wondered if I did have a thing for pregnancy, so I looked some stuff up. Nope. There's a baby in there and that's weird. And so that solved that. A year's long fascination gone in a minute. Nipple clamps. Rough sex. It feels a bit harsh when you are the aggressor per se, and #X200B, still follow through as my wife enjoys it. Don't mind taking it for the team. Deleted. Cat ears. Me girlfriend wears them now just to make me uncomfortable. As a former pro dome, I had so many clients book XYZ and turn up, then tap out at the very start as the reality of their extreme fantasy dawned on them. Most ended up with a cup of tea, sat on my sofa with a gentle there. Public places, tried in the car. Thought it would be hot, but I was tense thinking someone would show up and caught us, so I wouldn't relax and got as dry as the Sahara Desert. Edit. Wow. My first silver. Thank you so much. 2 chicks, same time. 69. It's funny but not practical with height differences. I usually end up hurting my neck or feel like I'm crushing my geffetted. Well, I fluffed up. I still get super excited when a girl offers anal, but every time I'm just thinking during, with enough lube it almost feels as good as a meow. Being tied up or handcuffed. Had a girlfriend who liked it and she wanted me to try it. I liked doing it to her, so I figured why not. Decided for her birthday, I would handcuff myself to the bed and tie a ribbon to my slong about 10 or so minutes before she would get home from work. About 15 minutes go by and I decide to unlock myself to give my wrists a little rest. End up dropping the key down the side of the bed and now I'm stuck. Turns out my girlfriend went to dinner with her mom. She finally shows up about an hour later and steps into the room with her mom right behind her. Altogether, didn't really go as planned. On the contrary, I was totally against anal. Please don't be like me. Side story, when I was probably about 12 years old, my sister and I were visiting my grandma. We were having a good time just talking and laughing. I'm not exactly sure what brought this up, but my grandma began to explain why anal isn't a good idea. She said, and I quote, "Don't ever try anal sex. It hurts and you never get the smell to go away." I felt so awkward in the moment, but darn, looking back, that's probably one of the most classically funny moments in my life. The fantastic this about this is my sister totally remembers, and we bring it up in conversation a couple times a year. I'm 27 and my sister is now 30. Thought I was the anal guy. But you can judge from my username that it's something else that gets me going. I used to think that tit jobs were going to be my thing. They're super sexy to watch in prawn, but in practice, they're pretty awkward and it takes a while to get me off. My missus has some big breasts, but it was still awkward for her. Anal sex. I was so caught into it from prawn, developed some fantasies, etc. And finally got a chance to try it, tried it twice, even though first time was interesting because it's something new and I thought I'd enjoy it, I didn't. It felt uncomfortable, unpleasuring for both sides, and it took long to get there with little to no rewards. My first GF, we were in high school, was incredibly submissive, greater than, because she'd had lots of relationships with older, abusive men and was pretty broken, less than. This turned out to be a huge turn-off, even though it seems like kind of a stereotypical thing guys would like, because it got to the point where I was never really 100% sure if she was actually consenting or not. This was also how I developed my "it's not my job to fix you" approach to relationships. We mutually split up and remained friends. She got better with professional help. Grapefruit blowjobs. Incredibly messy, but you always have a high protein and fiber snack afterwards, though. Nipple play. I have inverted nipples, NOPE. Domination. For a long time I thought of myself as a switch. I would give dares on the internet and stuff like that. A girl I was talking to IRL about BDSM said she was a dome and really wanted to try being submissive for a change. So we met up, went on a wonderful date, got to the bedroom, making out like crazy, and she basically starts walking me through how to top someone. I tied one of her hands into the bed harness and immediately started having a panic attack as I realized how much responsibility I suddenly have and how much she must really trust me to let me do this to her, and what if something goes wrong, and oh god, it's too darn much. We talked about it after I calmed back down, and apparently she also started freaking out because she suddenly realized that being tied down with no control was absolutely not what she wanted. We ended up having an amazing session with me in my rightful place and her in hers. Darn, I miss her sometimes. Anal happy fun time with my GF. Was super hooked from prawn movies, but when we tried it at home it was like ew. I always thought I was bisexual. Until I actually hooked up with a guy. Not for me, I love the female body way too much. Blowjobs. I'll stick to receiving them instead. Feet. I think they look attractive, but yeah, I really don't wanna do anything with them. Bring the coochie, ma'am. Impregnation. I had a huge breeding fetish. From 16 to 20 I was pretty much a happy fun time addict and would need to have happy fun time twice a day or I'd get these wicked panic attacks. From men I'd meet at bars to boyfriends, I constantly was getting nutted in. Used to put my feet behind my head after happy fun time in hopes I'd get pregnant. Got pregnant at 20. Horrified me. Was financially unstable, mentally a mess, and living on the opposite coast from my family and everyone I know. The reality kicked in, I got sober, therapy for my happy fun time addiction, and very sadly, an abortion. Fluffed me up for a while. Never again though. Been on birth control for 2 years. Not getting off it until I'm ready. Squirters. Turns out it would have been wise to invest in a tarp unless you like washing your bedding and using hairdryer to dry your mattress. Hardcore bondage. It was scary, and way too intense. Too real, I guess. I'm surprised impregnation fetish isn't the top answer. Anything food related. It's just messy and sometimes sticky. Stuffing balloons with meat and letting them pop on my nipples. Tried face sitting. Not my thing. Bottom. One of my friends was obsessed with golden showers. He just really fluffing wanted to piss on someone. So, he convinced his girl to let him do it in the shower. Afterward he was totally disgusted. With her and with himself. Ended up being a relationship ender because he just didn't respect her anymore. I stopped hanging out with him after this.